I brought my book so you can all see it, but there's also a big one up there to just remind you, afterwards. So actually, I'm going to contradict something that Alex has just said, which is really mean. Sorry, Alex. But she called you a former Spice Girl. True, is it?
I
You're
know,
always a Spice Girl.
People often say it, and it's an easy mistake to make. So all is forgiven.
All is forgiven,
Alex. Yeah. But I was like, no. Once a Spice Girl, always a Spice Girl.
Excellent.
Yes. You are funny. It's like bonfire night.
Right. Beginning in your bedroom in the northwest of England, dreaming of performing, Who I Am follows your meteoric rise. I mean, people use that word, but it is a meteoric rise. We'll go on to the statistics in a minute. As you joined the Spice Girls, a collection of women singers, girls then, because you were children, brought together because you answered an ad on a flyer, which is remarkable. You became a global sensation that will spread the message of girl power to stadiums, and I suspect more importantly to you, into hearts of everyone. And here we are all these years later to prove that. Your book, your honest, raw, often hilarious book, is, a description of the incredible highs of becoming one of the world's most recognisable pop stars. But also, you do talk about some of the lows. So whilst we are going to talk about playing at Wembley and conquering the Brits and closing the Olympics, which, you say all of those in one breath, it's unbelievable, isn't it? And we will also talk about the other things that come hand in hand with being famous that are perhaps not so much fun. There's so much to unpack and probe. For the first time ever, Melanie will talk about, in this book, she talks about the pressures of fame, the shaming and bullying that you experienced, the struggles that you've had with your body image, and we can I just say ludicrous, but anyway, but never mind, and mental health and the difficulty of finding yourself when the whole world is telling you who you are and they all know your name. So it's an incredible story of resilience and hope, and it's my absolute privilege and joy to be talking to you today, and I'd like you to give her one more round of applause. Just for Melanie. Right, because it is a memoir, I think we can just start at the very beginning. And so we've mentioned, we're both Northern girls here. I do live in Surrey, I live in Guildford, but I've migrated. But both Northern girls, you're in Northwest, born and bred. Your childhood, from the book, let's be honest, was short. If you think of it in the classical sense of what childhood is, what we receive to be a childhood. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it wasn't anything I'd given too much thought to, because your childhood is yours and that's your normal. But when I've got older and had more experiences and then kind of examined that more within the book, it made me realise how quickly that, the breakup of the family unit and how different my environment became was quite impactful at that time in my life.
Because you were a toddler?
I was a toddler, yeah. So my mum and dad divorced when I was about 4 years old. And, I obviously, it's very sad always when relationships break up, especially when there are children involved. And when I look back now, I feel, proud of my mum in the way that she was brave. It was the late 70s. It was a very different time from the communities that they both came from. Breaking up a marriage was really not the done thing. But she, had decided that it wasn't working for her anymore. So she moved on, both her and my dad moved on, and she was quite quickly in another relationship with who is still my stepdad to this day. But together was this new father figure. We spent time with my grandparents, and then we ended up in council accommodation in a pretty sketchy area. And I'd been in a very, not super comfortable, but in a family environment, and it was, I don't think it affected me a lot, because you know, I've been the only one, and I'm still the only one of my mum and dad, but now I have half siblings and step siblings, and as much as I adore them all, growing up I kind of felt like I was a little bit in the way. I didn't really fit in anywhere properly. I was a bit of a burden, and I think that's really informed my personality.
Yes, you talk about that in the book, and I'm such a therapist. I'm not a therapist, by the way, but I just always I wanted to hug you throughout this book. I just wanted to put my arms around you and say, none of them thought you were a burden. You weren't a burden. And the fact you are different from your brothers and sisters because you don't share parents the way all the others do is perhaps the reason you are unique. And you are unique. There's 5 people that have had your experience. In fact, arguably, there isn't anyone who's ever had your experience, but there's 5 people in the world that have had a similar experience. So you are unique. So maybe, whilst it was the terrible, formative thing, feeling slightly different, maybe it was quite a positive thing in the long run. Did you think that while you were writing the book?
You know, I think it's a theme, it's a recurring theme through this book, and something as you get older, you come to realise more and more that there's good and bad in everything. No matter what that thing is, you know, being famous is incredible, and I wouldn't change it. But it's not all plain sailing, you know, there's a darkness to it as well. And I would say, you know, with my experiences, yeah, you know, sometimes it was painful, but it's made me determined. And, you know, it's made me really want to go out and succeed at the things that I love.
And that little girl, that little 3-year-old, what was she dreaming of? I think I know.
Well, I don't know. When I was 3, what was I dreaming of when I was 3?
3, 4, 5, 6. What was your first love?
My first love was dancing, I would say. And, you know, as soon as I was lucky enough to experience a performance, like go to the theatre, I was really, you know, captured by the magic of theatre. And it's so lovely. I have been on so many stages, and like, you know, obviously some huge world famous ones, and then some, you know, teeny tiny ones dotted about everywhere. And there is something about, you know, those lights and stuff. It's very intoxicating. So I had that quite early on. And yeah, it just grew as time went on, and then when I started to understand more about what really was the driver of that passion, then it became more important to achieve it.
And what is the driver of that passion?
Well, I think initially because I was started as a dancer, I'm a very physical person, so to be able to express myself physically is a huge part of me, because I'm not very confrontational. You know, sometimes I haven't been good at speaking out at times, so a real way to kind of get things out of my system was to dance. But then when I was at Performing Arts College, when I was probably about 17, I did a singing competition, and there was other students in the audience, and it was the first time I had a really strong connection with the audience and felt, you know, this thing between us, and that was when it really became about singing for me, and that's really grown through the years, and I've realised how much that is important in what I do.
Because you sort of jumped there, but that's fine because we've a lot to cover. But so you are classically trained. You know, it wasn't you were dancing, you were ballet, you're singing. You know, you kind of go, oh, and then I tried singing, but it isn't quite that, is it?
No, it's not quite that. Well, my mum's a singer, so I was always around music. You know, there was always either music playing in the house, or musicians rehearsing in the house, or going to gigs to watch my mum, like locally. And I just took all of that for granted and thought that was kind of normal. And it's not until many years later I've gone, wow, that was quite privileged to grow up in that environment. But I started going to dancing when I was very little. There was a little bit of a break just due to finances. And then I went back when I was 8 years old, and then quite quickly I got quite serious about it.
You pestered your mum, didn't you?
I pestered my mum and my brother, and it's all in the book. My brother still takes the mickey out of me because she used to spend all of the family allowance on my dance lessons.
Brilliant.
But the thing is, it's like,
I think that's paid off.
I think it's paid off, right?
I think she's all right for her investment, isn't it?
But yeah, that was the thing growing up. The bone of
That's
contention.
interesting about your mum, because she is a singer. So how many times has she just sort of looked at you and said, "You're everything. You know, I'm so proud. It's turned out how I
You know, it's so interesting because my mum being a singer, I thought she was the coolest mum ever, which she was and is, but I just knew how hard the music industry was, and that was because of her experiences. She'd signed 2 record deals with 2 different bands, had been so close to, you know, having notoriety and success in the music industry, but it just hadn't happened. And so for me, it was just like, well, that's impossible. It's just impossible. You can't do that. And to the point where I never had a lot of confidence in my vocal ability, and I was so passionate about dance. That was the way I was going. But I think it was that experience that made me go, you know what? This is what I want to pursue. I want to do that. And I just think, you know, my dad, on the other hand, was always a bit like, but you know, what have you got to fall back on? What about, you know, a proper job? You know, he was one of those, and he obviously, you know, loves me and supports me, but was always more concerned. But my mum's always been very, very supportive. But now, obviously, they're both incredibly proud.
Yeah, of course.
And they've just started talking to me since I wrote the book again.
Oh, and we'll get to that, yeah. And there's a few things that, yeah. So do you think it would be fair to say that you get a sort of sense of belonging from entertaining, that's where you are most you? Because you mentioned that you're not confrontational. I go further to say, in the book, you come across as quite shy, which for a performer, that's not what we think. We think, oh, they're quite full of themselves. You're absolutely not. You know, you're a very shy person.
Yeah.
So, but determined, you know, and the 2 things running parallel is this little bit of magic.
I think there's a lot of performers that have a similar story. You know, it's like an introvert, extrovert. And definitely on stage is where I feel most powerful. I mean, some performances I don't. Some performances I feel very vulnerable. You never know what you're going to get. But it was definitely the place I found like comfort and just so much like joy, you know, just so much just happiness at being able to express myself, where maybe I am a little bit more reserved in other areas of my life.
Yeah. So, the bit everyone likes to talk about. You were a child when you left home, 16. Again, that to me, that resilience, determination, strength. And you went off to musical theatre at college. You had a couple of offers, which in itself is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I somehow got to audition a year too early for London Studio Centre, which is...
I love the way you say that. Somehow. Probably very talented,
yeah,
I'm guessing.
I don't know how it happened. Anyway, I was offered a place, but I still had to do my GCSE, so I couldn't go at that point. But the one school I wanted to go to was the second audition I had. And travelling down from the north, and like my mum and dad, that was the first time I'd spent time with my mum and dad together since they've been together.
Just to make you more nervous.
Yeah. Awkward. Mum and dad separate. But yeah, so the second audition I had was the absolute, you know, first choice of college for me, and I got in. So I cancelled all other auditions after that because, you know, it would be nice to go down and get other offers, but that's where I want to be, and money isn't, you know, there to be travelling up and down to London all the time.
Yeah, and you went to college, you did your bit, and you came out of college, and actually, I think that's something that's really interesting for me in this book. You didn't look for fame. You looked to be a performer, but you didn't look to say, I mean, I think somewhere in the back of your head it was always I'm going to be the biggest and the best, but you, at one point, were thinking, well, if I end up on the cruises, that's where I might be for a while until it all takes off.
Mm-hmm.
And you were going to enter auditions the way we always hear performers have to. And then tell us the story about the moment everything changed.
I'm just smirking because I can't help but think of Jane McDonald. So, well, I'd done 3 years at a really, you know, highly respected performing arts college. So my absolute ultimate dream was to work in the music industry. I wanted to work in pop music. I wanted to perform pop music. But I thought that was impossible. So the next thing was musical theatre, the West End, which in itself was very, very difficult too.
And something you've gone on to do, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was going out and I was auditioning and I, you know, left college and the grant stopped. I was lucky enough. What keeps banging? Something keeps banging. Really?
It might be your little
Is it this?
thing.
Is it?
I'm just getting to check the colours off. It's going to be one of those shows.
It's 22 people. It's not me banging. Who's banging? Is it just in the monitor? Can you hear it? It's like a little thud.
I think it is you.
Is it? It's my heart beating really slowly.
If it's that slow, we need a doctor.
Sorry. Anyway, back to the story. So, yes. So musical theatre was auditioning, so, the money had stopped. We were having, at the time, it was being supported by the state, or whatever the correct terminology is. And auditioning, so you've got to get a job. You go into the job centre, they're like, you've got 3 years training in theatre, but you need to earn money, So you're like, oh, fuck, sorry. I'm swearing here. Is it my cheek? Is it my chiseled cheekbone?
It's like marble. Take someone's eye out.
So it got to that point where I never wanted to do a cruise because, no disrespect to people on cruises, obviously, because they're fabulous. But if you're out on a cruise, you're missing all of the opportunities in the West End, right? So I was like reluctantly at a cruise audition, and I was handed a flyer for a girl band, which became the Spice Girls.
It did, but it wasn't even that simple, was it?
No.
Because this is why I find you so fascinating, because the resilience that is necessary. I keep saying that word, because then you've got tonsillitis mid-callback.
Do you know, it's so funny, like even in my life now, it's like everything I do is like, don't do it the easy way.
No, one step forward, 2 back, 1 step forward.
But I was very, very determined. But I went to the audition, I got my call back, and then I was really ill. I couldn't even speak. And my mum called and begged for a little bit more time for me to get better. And they were like, no, sorry, we have the girls. And I was like, well, I thought this was the one, but being a performer, you're used to disappointment. So I was like, okay, onwards and upwards. And then the phone rings again. It was a landline. It had blank cords. I mean, it was another era. And it rang. So I went down, and the babies felt like dying upstairs. And they said, one of the girls hasn't worked out, we'd love to see you again. And I went down and I met Jerry, Melanie, Victoria, and Michelle. And I was in the band.
But because it was interesting, those names you've just given, because the band wasn't the 5 of you all the way from get-go.
Yeah.
There's 3 that almost. Can you imagine being an almost Spice Girl? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because at that point, even though obviously it's our band, we weren't the Spice Girls. Do you know what I mean? It was a band that was, obviously this management had a great vision.
Yeah.
Because they put these characters together. But the vision, the rest of the vision they had for us wasn't really in line with what we were thinking. So they kind of created Frankenstein's monster. So then once... so then once Emma comes on board, then everything changes, and then it becomes Spice at that point. What after it was Touch.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. It's have to tune in. But we can't do everything, because you do need to read the book. So, for many of us, there was a whole generation where the 5 of you together defined female friendship. And I think reading that book, certainly even before you got, before you brought anything out, and you were rushing around having a kind of mad life almost, putting these songs together, broke, driving around in a little tiny car, one between the 5 of you, being a bit crazy, if the truth were known. Sounds fabulous. Did you have a lot of fun?
Do you know, when we get together and reminisce, we always go back to those times.
Yeah.
Because, they were such innocent times for us. We didn't know what the future held. We were super ambitious. We were really optimistic. But we had no pressure. We were just on this crazy ride in Jerry's car. We survived, which is a shock.
And how old were you about this at this point? 19?
So we got together in 94, and then one of them was 96, so it was like, I met the girls when I was 20. Yeah, fizzing about, doing demo tapes, nicking demo tapes, getting into clubs, same with these big girl bands, getting in loads of places for free, just, you know, full of bravado.
It's good you were full of bravado because your first management, I mean, when I was reading the book, I kind of loved them because they put you together, and then I really felt they were quite, and these are my words, not yours, I felt they were quite exploitative, and that they had these 5 young girls, because many of you pre-university, if you'd gone the university route, you wouldn't have even graduated that age, you're still kids. And they controlled you quite a lot, or tried to, certainly. There was an incident, a number of incidents where they talked about how you looked, not just you, I mean, you as a gang group, and you sort of saw through that as you gang, and you saw you were a bit more than that.
Yeah, I think the thing was, there was a financial investor and one of it was a father and son management team. So the investor and the father were, of a different generation. The son, Chris, was still successful. He is actually successful in music management today. And he had this vision. But we were coming from a very different era as well, and there is a lot of control in the music industry, and there's a lot of, obviously these people, they put a lot of time, effort and money into this project, so they had this vision for it and they wanted us to do what they wanted, and it was like, that's not working for us, and we tried to express that to them, but it just, it wasn't sinking in, and that was when we decided to leave.
And do you want to talk about your exit? Because it was quite dramatic.
Yeah, well, I talk about the Scooby-Doo moments within the book, and whenever the Spice Girls, there's ridiculousness. So, yeah, we decided we were going to go, we were put up in this house together, and we had it all pre-planned, we'd done a showcase, we'd performed in front of songwriters, publishers, and producers.
There was a buzz at this point.
It was a buzz, yeah. It was the first time we performed in front of a room of people. I mean, it was probably, I'm trying to think how many people, I think we did 2 or 3 sessions. Probably like this middle section was about that many people we performed to, but to us it was, it was the first audience, and we felt this buzz, and there were music industry people, it was good connections to have, but we'd already decided we were leaving. So we got the contact of one guy, Mark Fox, who was head of publishing at BMG at the time. We got the feeling he was, a pretty connected and good person to know. So Joey worked her magic. And yeah, we were like, right, brilliant, we got what we need. We packed up the house, we went to the studio to pick up the demo tapes. And we had, someone was the decoy, I think it was me and Victoria were distracting while Joey was stealing the tape, and for some reason it went in her knickers or her bra, I can't remember, it was underwear of some sort, and then we were in different cars, we had to meet her, she was in her theatre now, I was in Victoria's, Renault Clio.
Okay.
Because she's always been a bit posher. Just a little bit though. And it was just ridiculous, and it was all everything we've ever done, the biggest decisions we've made, the things that have been the most important moments in our career, we've just giggled.
Yeah. And that comes across in the book, but also the independence comes across in the book, because one of the reasons you wanted to leave is they had suggestions such as you all need to wear the same outfit. So after, picking 5 different personalities, the idea of putting you all in the same outfit, and you rejected that, and you created your own look, you created your own name, everything evolved through you guys. And in fact, not to dismiss them entirely, because you did meet your writers, some of your writers through them, and there is something I want to tell the crowd that I don't know how many of you already know this, I didn't know this. I knew Wannabe had been a hit, huge hit. Did you know it was a #1 in 37 countries? I wasn't aware there was 37 countries in the world. No, I wasn't. But I didn't know there was pop charts. So it was a #1 in 37 countries. Now, am I right in thinking it took you less than an hour to write that?
Yeah, it was definitely less than half an hour.
Okay, that's good.
15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And it was just nonsense, energy, Spice Girls in the room, Matt and Biff, who are our probably our favourite writers. They've kind of, especially with Biff, everything he does is very, you know, visual, and he really drew out of us what we had, and he was like, capture that, because that's the magic, and just said, just do anything.
You see, I would say it wasn't nonsense. I would say all those years of the things you'd suppressed, the things you'd all dealt with, the things that you weren't allowed to say, it was more the other word you said, not nonsense, magic, and it all just came together.
Yeah.
And it was just that little moment of fabulousness. And actually, what saddens me a little bit is the press, etc. Especially at the time, it was very easy to dismiss and say it was a bit of nonsense, a bit of fun, it was a catchy tune. Well, really, they should have been telling you were geniuses, and I'm certain if you were men, they would have been telling you were geniuses to, you know, create something in 15 minutes that affected 37 countries in such a way. But that's just my thought. So there is this kind of intense emotional time. Everybody's having a blast, and then suddenly, and it really is a blink of an eye, you're massively famous. And it was such a short period of time.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, we were so, what's the word? Where's behind this? It's my age. We were so impatient, you know, and we felt like, even though we'd only got together in 94, Wannabe was released in the summer of 96, 2 years. When you're 20, that's an eternity, yeah? So we were so ready, but actually nothing can prepare you for fame. And it's very different to what you imagine.
Well, that was as though you've read my pre-prepared notes, which you haven't, because there is the flip side to fame. I mean, you were having a blast. You were the most famous group that, well, we probably had since the Beatles. I think that is absolutely fair, and you know, the first women to have ever done this, and it was so joyful and exciting, and as I say, a whole generation from tots to, you know, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s were loving your music. But the very nature of, I don't know, say with books, say it is with music, you're measured all the time, aren't you? Where are you in the charts? How many have you sold? And numbers and measurements, don't think they work in your favour, Melanie. They put you under a lot of stress.
Well, it's quite true, actually. I mean, obviously, you know, at the beginning with the girls, and getting, you know, Wannabe, it went in at number 3, it went up to number 1 the second week, it stayed there for 7 weeks. I mean, that was it. We were pretty cemented then, but it was, are they a one-hit wonder? Yeah. But we knew we had Say You'll Be There, which is a better song, really, as songs go. And then, of course, we had an amazing video for that as well. So we knew, and then we had to become one, but we just knew we had so much to back it up. We had a really great album. And in that, at the beginning, you know, the first flush of it was incredible, it was exciting, it was, you know, it was exhausting, but it was all good. But later on in my life and career, there's been times when I've been getting the numbers. The most successful times in my life sometimes have been the hardest times for me.
Yes, because the fame comes with exposure, and particularly media coverage is brutal towards women. I mean, it's brutal towards everybody, I think, but particularly women, and particularly young women, and you all seem very easy targets. And the thing I noticed when I was looking into this is they can't just say they like you all. They have to pick a favourite. Well, if you've got a favourite, you've got someone you don't like. And you're all constantly measured. So it was kind of more those numbers and those measures that I would say didn't work in anybody's favour.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, you're right. It was like, who's your favourite? Who do you like the most? Who do you like the least? Who's the best singer? Who's the worst singer? You know, who's the prettiest? Who's the ugliest?
Why do you think that happens?
I think it is different now. They definitely wouldn't print some of the things now that they did in the 90s. The 90s was shocking, the language that they used around women and the things that were, you know, acceptable to be printed. We were quite vulnerable targets because we were super young. And, you know, there's always this thing, isn't there, with famous people, it's like, well, you asked for it.
But do you think you did?
But no one fucking asked for that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we went into it like with such like innocent and positive thoughts. You know, we wanted to make music, we wanted to travel the world, we wanted to meet people, do red carpets, and all the exciting things that, you know, so many young people grow up wanting to be famous, wanting to be a musician or an actor and all of these things. And you don't, I mean, why does that have to be?
A prize.
Yeah, why is that the price to pay? Is that we're just going to criticise you, we're going to put you down, we're going to tell you about yourself? I mean, the thing that really annoys me about the tabloid media is that they tell you things you already know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's human nature. We are our own worst critic. You know, so if you wear an outfit and you're like, that is a bad outfit. You see it on a picture like, what was I thinking? Why do you don't need all the papers to tell you, do you know? Do you know what I mean?
No, I mean, this book has really made me think about the nature of fame and this idea that you have to pay for being good. Where in fact, if there wasn't famous, talented if I'm honest, I think you're a workaholic, so workaholic artists or inventors or scientists, what would the rest of us have? You know, I mean, that's what we need. But for some reason, do you think is there a jealousy?
Someone is having a can of beer down there.
Yeah. It's water, she's saying.
Yeah.
Serious water.
Sorry,
That's all right. It's all right. I just think that. But I think that you're touching on it, but you're not going there. But you do in the book, and I think it's fair not to go there tonight because I'm going to buy the book. But you look with some heartbreaking honesty at the kind of things that you openly say you had eating disorders, you had depression. These are big things for very young people, and it wasn't just you, it was, I would say, probably every member of the band had something or other. Mm-hmm. I feel uncomfortable asking you to expose yourself further on stage. You've written about it in a book, I don't need to, but you're a big believer in therapy and in sharing. Mm-hmm. Is that the point? What is the point of you exposing yourself? Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it after all that crap?
Yeah.
You've got over it, you've got your own career, why are you going back there?
Because, you know, I think, sadly, now we are very aware that this is common. So many people struggle, so many people suffer. And I know how lonely it can be, how isolating it can be. And, you know, personally for me, and I'm lucky, actually, I'm in a really privileged position where I can do this. All of the pain that I've been through, I can use it and I can try and channel it into doing some good. You know, with this book, I avoided doing an autobiography for decades probably, because I knew if I wanted to do it, I wanted to do it properly. And there was a lot of very painful things to revisit. But then when I met Ollie, who's here tonight, my publisher, you can all thank Ollie for the book. You know, he made me realise and understand that with it being my book, it could be anything I wanted it to be. And everybody's seen Jerry in the Union Jack dress, the Spice Girls standing on top of taxi cabs at London 2012 Olympics. And I wanted to share that. I wanted to have a very descriptive and visual, you know, storytelling of those moments and behind the scenes of those moments, so the reader could have those iconic images in their mind, but kind of feel like they were there, you know. And I thought it'd be really fun. I wanted to describe growing up in the northwest of England, you know, in the 70s and 80s. I wanted to share that with people. But then the final thing for me, the deciding factor was, the hardest part to write was my, you know, severe depression, eating disorders and anxiety that I suffered around the millennium and still, you know, deal with today. I just thought, if I can write this book and be very open and honest, and it can be of comfort to people, then it's worth doing it. So I did, you know, it worries me sometimes because a lot of interviews I do, not this one, but a lot of interviews I do, they kind of dwell on the negative.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me because it's like, I feel like it's a very balanced book.
Yeah.
There's so much joy, there's so much laughter, But, you know, life is full of all of these things.
Yeah.
You know, pretty much in equal measure, to be fair. Sometimes it's a little bit off kilter. But, yeah, but that was the thing for me. It was like, you know what, I want to dig deep. And also, I'm in a, again, very privileged position. I've had the opportunity to trial different things, meet different therapists, try different therapies, and not everybody can afford to do that. The NHS is beyond stretched, and you know it's even difficult to get an appointment with your doctor. So all the money I've spent, hopefully I can put a bit of that in the book, and it can be of help to people. You know, I'm not a doctor. I said I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. You know, I'm not a medical professional, but I've spent enough fucking money. I want to put it to good use.
Well, you do share bravely. In our generation, we didn't share, and so it's a big leap, and it's a process, and I'm really proud of you doing it. And I do think that basically, after you've read it, you will all just want to be her best friend. I definitely did. I kept putting that out on Twitter today in case you were going, all right.
I didn't look at Twitter today.
Oh, God, yeah, no, that's why I had to bring it up now. Anyway, so the time with the Spice Girls was actually when you've never broken up. That's very important for you to all know. The Spice Girls have not broken up. You've had pauses. You've all gone off and done really different things. Let's talk about some of the things you've done, because you have had a massive solo career, and I think there we go. A massive solo career, and I think should we just do some numbers on that one as well? So you released your first solo album, Northern Star, which sold 4 million copies worldwide. Now, can I say that's quite an annoying number for me, because I've been writing books for 22 years and mine's 4 million. And it's taken me 22 years, Melanie. So that's, you know.
That's all right.
And she's gone, well, this is like my second thing, it's just the other thing I do. So, but this is the other thing. You've released 7 albums, including, you know, the UK Top 10 Melanie C in 2020, and including collaborations. You've sold, wait for it, 23 million copies as a solo artist. Right? Tell me a bit about that. What was your best moment? What's the moment about being a solo artist? Not being one of a gang was established with a lot of fun, a lot of joy. Yeah. What's the best moment about being a solo artist?
You know, when I went to LA, I did some writing here in the UK, and I was over in Dublin as well. But when I went to LA to finish writing the recording Northern Star, I'd done 2 years, I'd done 4 years with the girls from the beginning, and then we ended up with the tour in '98, and we had all that craziness, you know, the 2 albums, the movie, the tour, and everything in between, and I really needed space. I think we all did. You know, we'd had this amazing time together, but we were pretty much burnt out, and we needed to kind of establish who we were as individuals. And for me, there was no better place than being in the studio environment and finding my voice as a solo artist. You know, it was time for me to really express myself as an individual, and it was, you know, I feel quite emotional tonight. I think it's this full moon. But yeah,
it will be. That's my yoga teacher.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm so proud of that album. I listened. Oh my gosh, I was in. I'm going to sound like the right one, can I? I was in LA last week. Yeah. So I was doing a similar thing to this, but in LA. Didn't mention I was in LA. And I talked about a song called Feel the Sun. Anyone know Feel the Sun? Yeah. So that is my love song to LA, because I completely found myself in that environment, and I'm so grateful. It felt like a very prolific time for me as a songwriter. It was just flowing, and it was wonderful, and I worked with the most incredible people, and I still can't believe I worked with some of the people I worked with, like Rick Rubin and Marius DeFries and William Orbit and, you know, Craig Armstrong did strings, and, you know, people, if you don't know who these people are, I mean, they worked with like my heroes, Madonna, and, you know, just Red Hot Chili Peppers, just incredible.
It's amazing.
Thank you. Well, that's what I'm saying. So I listened to it, so I talked about it, and the funny thing about, you know, I always write music based on my experiences, you know, whatever I'm going through. So each album has been a reflection of my life at that time, and I talked about Feel the Sun when I was in And I listened to it. Was it yesterday? Saturday or Sunday? I listened to it, and the lyrics, I was like, it made me cry. Because I thought, wow, I didn't realise when I write songs, I really know what's going on, but somehow my not creative brain stops me from seeing. Yeah, it's weird. Do you have that with your
I think it's something you tap in and you realise that you get it on the page. I think with my writing, I simply read the end of the book and I think, oh, I've mentioned the word hope 50 times. This book's about hope. But I didn't know I was setting out to write a book about hope. So it does come out. We're cleverer than we think we are, which is good, in my case. So obviously, I mean, you dropped in some names there that are fantastic. It really is. Your life is a bit like visiting Madame Tussauds. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just walk around, you go, there's another famous person, there's another famous person. So I'm going to ask you a little fangirl question. Who has been the most exciting person for you to meet?
Someone said another. Well, I grew up in my bedroom. I listened to all my mum's music, so it's more music based. So like my mum's record collection, my favourite album of all time is Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
So meeting Stevie was jaw dropping. And then when I started to discover my own music and kind of see an artist that represented what I wanted to be and wanted to do was Madonna.
Okay.
And I discovered Madonna at the beginning, probably like, I don't know, 1984, I want to say, like a virgin. I don't think it was her first single, but it was on the first album. And to get to meet her and to get to know her a little bit was, it is still bonkers.
That's good though, because that clearly is one of those meet your heroes and she's turned out to be fabulous, rather than meet your heroes and it's disappointing.
Oh, I mean, Madonna's all the things.
But you're like that.
All the things.
You're like that about everybody. Can I say this book is so generous? She doesn't slag anyone off. And you must want to. I mean, but she absolutely just, she's really
I think with this book, because I don't have any scores to settle or any vendettas, it was more, I wanted to tell my story, and I am a very kind and generous person. I do tend to see the good in most people, but you can read between the lines.
You can. She'll say something like, well, this isn't my story to tell. You just know she'll go, So you mentioned something there that was, I mean, this is quite funny in a way. I mean, in writing novels, it's obviously fiction, sort of. My family spends a lot of time trying to find themselves in my books, which is nerve-wracking. Now, your family, when they read this, how did they feel? Because you made a very interesting comment. I've heard you say that fame happens to everyone around you. They didn't ask for it, you did. So, what was that process like? Them suddenly seeing themselves, seeing what you thought of them, things you might not discuss?
Yeah, that was really, really difficult. That was like my first hurdle to get over. I mean, my mum and dad and my closest siblings, my half brother Paul and my sister Emma, were very helpful in the writing of the book, because there were certain things I was a bit hazy, and it was very important moments in their lives that I wanted to get across properly. But yeah, I think it was that thing of like my childhood thoughts and feelings. I've never shared them with my mum and dad, and I think it was. I mean, my mum struggles to read it actually, and my dad's been amazing. I mean, they've both been amazing and very supportive. And you know what? I think it's like, again, it's that thing of not talking, isn't it? It's definitely their generation
Didn't talk.
working class. Northern,
too busy.
Don't talk about your emotions. Get on with it. Yeah, exactly. Too busy working, right?
Yeah.
So, but me having expressed myself in this way has actually been really beautiful. It's enabled us to for our relationships to improve.
And I'm going to give you a little warning, although you seem like a rowdy bunch, I don't think it's going to be difficult. I'm actually going to open up and let you have some question time in a few minutes. So have a little think, have a little think.
No pressure.
But I think they're going to be going for it. I'm going to probably be pulled off stage so they can do their bit. But on the other end of the scale, Scarlett, your daughter, your gorgeous, gorgeous daughter. So I'm a mum of one as well. And it's so funny because quite often in your interviews you say, oh, she just finds me embarrassing. Can I say she'll grow out of that? Because my son went through a stage of just thinking, please don't tell anyone you know me, can I change my name, walk in a different direction, live in a different house, that kind of thing. But again, I think you've probably gifted her something here. You've gifted her some honesty, that she will be able to know there's nothing she can't say to you because she knows that's the way you are. She might not think that right now. I'm just...
Do you know what, I think it is as well with kids, they are very embarrassing, especially in front of their friends.
Yeah.
But, Scarlett knows everything in this book. We've discussed all the different things in there. And some of them I went into a little bit more depth because I thought, we've touched on it, but you have to keep it age appropriate with your kids, don't you? But she's 30 now and she knows it all. So it's fine. But she's amazing. And I think the thing is, as embarrassed as they get, they're very proud, really.
Yeah, because isn't I can't remember if I read it or I listened to you in a podcast, that the last time you saw the Spice Girls movie was because Scarlett's friends insisted on putting it on at a sleepover.
But so she was about 5 then, so...
You were like, I'm holding the remote control. Right, people, has anybody got a question? Oh, very keen. Now, I think there's going to be a roving mic.
Yes.
So, we're going to go for this lady, this blonde lady with the bob here and the centre to start with.
So my question is very specific, but everyone at least on Romeo will read because I know most of them. And you mentioned it tonight. Feel the Sun.
Yes.
One of the best songs you've ever written.
Thank you.
Haven't performed it though since
the Northern Star Tour.
It's a 2-part question.
Okay.
1, please will you perform it again very soon?
Okay. Ooh, nice.
2, when you do.
Yeah.
When? Please will you do the dance, doesn't have to be the specific version, but a dance version like you did on the second leg of the dance starter, because it's one of the best things ever. And also, can I just say one thing?
You're hogging.
I know I'm hogging, but thank you for asking about solo career.
Yes.
I think you got politely there. I thought she was going to ask me to do it now. So, another question, please. Chap over there in the cap.
Thank you. Hi Mel. First of all, I just want to say congratulations on a fabulous book talk. My friends are actually in LA. They said you were amazing, so yeah. I just want to know when are we going to expect the next album, solo album? Love the Spice Girls, of course, but when's the next solo album?
Nice question. Well, it's been a busy year. That's going to be my focus for next year. I'm hoping to keep getting out there and performing because that's what makes me happy and joyful. But I do need some new music. How long is a piece of string? Do you know what I mean? I want it to be great, but I like to think you would hear something new next year. Maybe not her album,
That's very happy. Down here, we'll do one on the right first. Yep, my right, that's you.
You're right.
Yeah. Well, you can fight for it.
Hi Melanie. From reading the book, we know you love musical theatre since you were very young. If there was one musical theatre song you'd have to record with the Spice Girls, what would that be?
I don't know. Can you think of any? I know I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I think the Spice Girls song that makes me feel most musical theatre is Lady as a Vamp. That feels quite musical theatre, doesn't it? But a musical theatre song, there's so many, isn't there? I do think there should be another Spice Girls musical.
Yes.
That didn't really work out the first time around, and I just think the music is so well suited, especially now so many jukebox musicals. I think if we could...
That was a bit of a mystery why that didn't work, because he had all the elements. So, I'm glad you asked that question, because Jesus Christ Superstar is my favourite musical. It's brilliant.
Oh,
yes, very, very, very good.
I would have to say that is the score of all the shows I've been in, too. But I'm just thinking about musical theatre and just like generally being in shows, when that overture starts, it's the most exciting thing. And sometimes when you're doing the same thing every night, it can get a bit like, yeah, blasé words. But every night I'm that time, like, I mean, we're just about to go into a riot, so maybe that had something to do with it. But no, it's an incredible score, and it was so lovely to be part of that production because Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, who came together again for that production, is always how they'd wanted it to be seen, because they wanted it to be, you know, there's a mixture of rock and theatre, and we did it in arenas, and it was...
And they wrote that one, they were kids as well. Oh my God, everyone's kids to me
crazy,
now,
yeah,
but yeah, sorry. Any more questions? Oh, we'll just go a little bit further back. Yeah, the guys are waving at me. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Melanie. I'm from Israel, so sorry for my English. I can't believe I'm speaking with you right now. It's crazy. I'm shaking. I wanted to ask you, I know that you have a mixed feeling about the Spice Girls album, Forever. I want to know, what do you think about this album now?
Amazing!
So I think Forever's difficult for me because obviously it was a difficult time personally for me. It was quite a departure stylistically for the Spice Girls. It had much more of an R&B feel. I think there were some amazing songs on the album. You know, performing Holler at the 2019 stadium shows was incredible, and Let Love Lead the Way. But yeah, it's hard for me to connect with those albums the way I do with Spice and Spice World. But I still obviously see it as a beautiful piece of work. Some incredible people worked on that album.
I think what's lovely about your career, Melanie, is you don't look back and regret anything. It seems over and over again you're just proud of it all and well done. Because I think that should be the message. That is a true empowerment message.
Yeah, do you know what? There's, obviously, you know, I think it's funny, isn't it, when people ask you about regrets, because they have no regrets, and it's like, of course you regret things, because you'd have done it differently, you know, but you can't change it, so what's the point?
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing that is so beautiful to me is that I've just been able to really fully embrace everything, you know, everything Spice Girls. You know, there were really, really difficult times for me. But you know, you learn and grow from them, and it kind of makes you who you are. And I just feel like it gives you so much like scope to be helpful and useful to other people.
Yeah. And I don't know anybody who goes through, I always say this when writing a book, it's not a book if they start off happy, they're completely happy all the way through and they end happily. That's really actually quite boring. So you need a bit of space. No, it's not. There was a whole bunch of questions there. I'm only taking one from that area. I'm going to go with the lady with the hat again. Can I give you a tip? Come up with hats. Because it's easy to identify. Yeah.
Hi, Mel.
Hi.
2 questions. One, what was it like singing with Bryan Adams?
Okay, you want to answer that one first before I hear the second one? Yeah? Okay, so, I mean, I've talked about this a lot, so forgive me if you've heard me say this a gazillion times. You know, I absolutely adore Bryan. He's such a wonderful person. We bumped into each other, it's all in the book, but we bumped into each other in a lift. And from that chance meeting in a lift, he invited me to sing on When You're Gone. And it was just so brilliant to work with him. He is, you know, really generous and has supported me throughout my career. And I just feel like it just came at a really important moment in my life where I had desires to be a solo artist, but I think getting that kind of seal of approval from such an established artist really gave me that confidence to go on and do the things I've gone on to do. Yeah.
I feel you can only really have one question, so this can be a quickie. Didn't get that. Next one. Okay, well, I think there's some more mics, so we'll just take this chap down here at the front.
I got one.
Maybe. Oh, she's no. Wait, excuse me. All right, we'll do that.
I love that.
Yes, that's perfect. Do that, chap. Yes, we'll do him.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi.
I'm a bit nervous. I just have a quick question with your personal look through the years you had. I'm a hairdresser, and I just wanted to know what was your favorite hairstyle look you had through the years. The
Do
fringe.
you know what? I loved when I cut my hair off. That was so liberating. And I'd never do it again. But I think it's really good to do it once in your life, preferably when you're young and you've got instruction you can take it. But yeah, that was really fun to do that. And and I'm going to have to say, the big sporty one. I think that's my signature look, isn't it? Yeah, they're my two faves.
And we'll take this chap at the front.
Hi, Melanie. My question, you recently did a fantastic podcast interview with Stephen Bartlett, our CEO. If anyone hasn't listened to it, they need to listen to it because it's so good. One question I wanted to ask was, at that point when you were recording the audiobook, you hadn't yet recorded chapter 14, which those of us who read the book know that was a very particularly difficult chapter. I'm curious to know, how was the experience for you? Because you were a bit cautious about doing it. How was the experience of recording that chapter?
Yeah, do you know what? Actually, I think I'd mentally prepared for it, and I knew it was coming. So there was other bits in the book which surprised me more. I got upset at different points when I didn't expect to, when I kind of knew 14 was going to be hard. But yeah, audiobooks, wow. I was really looking forward to it. Oh, I hated it. It's a lot of work. So hard. I recently listened to, has anyone read Fat Tony's autobiography? Yeah. And at the end of the audiobook, when he goes, things I've learned, and he goes, the other thing I've learned, get someone else to do your fucking audiobook.
But it makes perfect sense that you do this. It would have been odd having someone else read it.
I couldn't have anybody else read it, and I'm really happy I did it now. But it was a slog. And it's funny, I was saying this earlier, so I got, obviously doing your own autobiography, you get a little bit obsessed with other people's autobiographies. And I was listening to it, because I was doing this audiobook, I was like, what's the tone, I don't want to overperform, and I don't want to be boring. And so I was listening to other people's, and I was kind of gauging, they're like between 7 hours and 9 hours in total. Mine's 14 and a half hours.
And how long did it take you to record that? Because also you stop and start. And
yeah, I had 10 4-hour sessions?
Yeah, I would guess that. That was exactly where I was going with it. Yeah.
And we only just got it finished.
So she worked that. Just
and I was doing shows, and I was doing other things. Sorry, I'm just moaning because I've been so busy.
You're not work shy though, Mel, so that's fine.
I'm not work shy, but sometimes it just takes a piss.
I think we have time for 2 more. So we are going to go over there, because you didn't think I'd noticed you, right at that side.
Just getting the girls to run with the mics out.
Do you want to get
10,000 Congratulations on the book. I've never read a book so quickly, so thumbs up. The thing that really resonated with me in the book was with you talking about sort of making yourself smaller and kind of not wanting to rock the boat and stuff. Is that something that's changed in you as you've got older?
100%, yeah. And I think, I often talk about this, it's like, when I had struggles in my life, I would always think back to my childhood, because as a kid I was really confident, and I feel like young people have this essence of who they are, and through different experiences, that can get knocked out of us along the way. So many of us, I think mine was more through my teens and my 20s, and then trying to find that person again, because you spend all this time looking, don't you, trying to achieve or trying to be this thing or find out what this thing is that you should be, and you spend all the time looking out when you should really be looking in, because you do have all the answers, and it's just so lovely to rekindle that flame and find the confidence to speak up and speak out and be who you are.
I actually going to stop on that question, because that was just such a perfect Melanie moment. I think that was just so lovely and well said. So yes.
Thank you
so much, and it really, and also for being so open and honest as well. This really is jam-packed full of, well, what a fantastic career and fascinating career. And Melanie has signed lots of copies, and they are available to buy in the foyer after the event. But can we give them both a huge round of applause?